So hi, everybody. We have a super amazing guest that we love here in South Africa, especially Simone Mueller. I hope I have said her name and surname right. She's German. But she's a certified dog trainer and dog behavior consultant that specializes in force-free anti-predation training. She has 3 books out. So if I remember correctly, Hunting Together, Rocket Recall, and Don't Eat That. And a whole bunch of super awesome things. We'll definitely get into that in the podcast. But we are super excited to have you here with us.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Hi, Chantal, and hi, Angelique.
Hi.
Great to be here.
So first of all, can you tell us how you kind of started your training journey and what made you get into predatory behavior in dogs?
Oh yeah, that's a nice story. First, yeah, I started like many of us professionals with my own dog. And before I was a dog professional, I had my first own dog when I was in my 20s. Her name was Malinka. She was a mixed breed between Australian Shepherd was half of her, but the other half is unknown. So I guess it must have been something a little bit like a Molosser or like a Pit Bull or something like that, because she was really sturdy. And she was a big hunter. She wasn't that much a dog that went trekking or something, but when she saw something, she was like a little bulldozer. She just went for it, and she was super fast and very impulsive. And yeah, this cost me a lot of energy and sleep and nerves. And she was the reason why I started to get into dog training and into anti-predation training in the first place. And then I gradually went on the journey on a comprehensive dog trainer education. And yeah, this is how it all started.
Oh, nice. And I think it's so important as well, like learning about predatory behavior in dogs, because it is such a big problem. I remember I used to have a little Sheltie who many years ago, she was also a massive hunter, and I'd walk when I was in the UK in forests and things. And yeah, like you, I would get to the point where I would dread taking her out sometimes because there'd be deer there, and I know she would like just go off and just go flying off if she was off the lead. And she used to like almost track deer and then bring them back to me like, you know, or like sometimes she would just get herself, so she'd go flying off, and then she wouldn't be able to find her way back to me because she just got herself so yeah, I completely understand the struggles. And at the time as well, I don't think you'd written your books yet either, so and I was
apart from that.
So I kind of figured things out myself along the way and stuff. But can you tell us a little bit about what actually is predatory behavior in dogs?
Yeah. So when we think about predatory behavior, what most people think of is chasing, because this is the most obvious part, and where it all becomes very scary because it gets out of hand for us. And yeah, you never know what happens, because your dog might be shot or hurt or run into a car or stab themselves in the woods. And it's really scary. You never know, is my dog coming back or not? And so this is the most obvious part. But if you want to understand predation on a full scale, you need to know that it starts much earlier than that. So the chase is only a part somewhere in the middle. And it all really starts with orientation behavior. So, for example, you know, when your dog comes out of woodland and suddenly can see over a field, or maybe you come to the top of a hill and your dog can overlook a valley. What they do is they start to orient, which means they use their nose, they use their eyes or their ears to orient. Is there something interesting in the environment? And this can go into various directions. Is there a social partner? Then it doesn't go into predation, of course. But if there is something like a rabbit or a deer, then the predatory motor pattern or the predatory chain starts. And I like the term chain very much, because it's really like they enter the first step on a ladder or on a staircase, and then they slide onto the next part. It's like a chain. It merges into each other. And orientation behavior, as I said, is the very first behavior that we see: scanning, scenting, sniffing, air scenting, listening. And then when the dog makes out, okay, there is something interesting, then they go into the stalk. And the stalk is where they get really tense and arrow-shaped and tensed up, and they point towards this animal, and then they start to creep forward to get as close to the other animal as possible, because prey animals are swift and and fast, and the chase is the most energy consuming part. So the dog does not want to waste a lot of energy or a lot of calories to get their prey, and this is why they try to sneak up, and then only when they're sure or when the animal has noticed them, then they go into the chase. And this is where we notice, oh, we're in trouble here, dog is chasing. A lot of things have already happened, and a lot of things are going to happen, because this is not where it stops. So when the dog has made prey, when the dog or the canine is lucky, then they grab bite and they kill bite, and then they possess the prey animal, they hold on to it, and then they start to dissect and consume it. And only then the predatory behavior has come to an end. And we see that there is a lot going on, a lot of different behaviors, and they are all predation.
And I suppose the chase is the most exciting part for the dogs in terms of like all the endorphins and stuff flooding through the body. I find they get addicted to that behavior so quickly.
Yes, yeah, this is the reason why it is so hard to interrupt, because we have so much going on in the dog's body. Yeah, we have a massive release of dopamine. Dopamine is the most intensive neurotransmitter happening in this moment, but we also have adrenaline, we have cortisol, the stress hormone, we have endorphins in the end or towards the end of the predatory motor pattern, which is a happy hormone. It makes you feel happy. And the cocktail, the hormone cocktail, has a kind of euphorizing effect. So the dog feels this euphoria. Maybe you know this from your own dog, when they come back, and even though you are so mad, they are beaming with joy, and their eyes are like, wow, this was so worth it. Yep. And this is, it's a little bit like doing drugs, to be honest. It has an addiction on your body, and makes you just feel really good.
Amazing. Yeah.
Well, being in Africa, we also have a lot of wildlife, and they're in the back garden as well. So, they're out there. You don't have to go on a walk to find them. And my first adopted dog, actually, he came from Botswana, and he was a Ridgeback Labrador mix, but he also loved hunting and chasing things and finding little critters. And we had guinea fowl that used to sleep up in a tree. So guinea fowl is also like a ground dwelling bird that like runs, and they only fly if they have to. And there's like a ton of them, and they make a lot of noise. So you know that they are there. And every night they also tell you, we are here.
Oh gosh.
And yes. And when you were talking about the orientating, I always thought back to him and how he would hear that sound and he would know it's guinea fowl time.
Oh,
and the one day, he also took off into the mountain, and the whole neighborhood was searching for him. We were all on patrol, and he came back a few hours later, so happy, just like moseying in, having like spent a few times like chasing the guinea fowl. So he was super happy. But that also leads me to my next question: is why is it such a struggle for us to train our dogs not to do that? Why do people go and rely on aversive methods? So why do we struggle with that with our dogs?
Yeah, it's really a big struggle, because due to this hormone cocktail in the body, it feels so good for the dog. So it is so self-reinforcing or self-rewarding, which means you don't even have to do anything. Your dog will find it great anyway. And this is the big struggle, because how do you compete with this? It's totally unfunctional, or it doesn't work if you just hand your dog over a cookie. And normally in positive dog training, we say, ignore the behavior and it will go away, or reinforce it and it will grow. And in predation, this doesn't work, because the behavior itself is self-reinforcing. So we can hardly ever match this with our reinforcers that we have, a cookie, a toy. it's nothing compared to the original stuff, and the dog wants to repeat it and wants to have it. And I think this is the biggest problem here, that we always somehow struggle or fight against these drugs that the dog is experiencing while he is performing predatory behavior. And of course, you can suppress predatory behavior with aversive measures. But for those people who think, oh, it's just a little tap on the shoulder or something like this, you can totally forget this. When you understand predation, you are never fooled by such an argument, because a tap on the shoulder will never interrupt a behavior that is so self-reinforcing and feels so good for the dog. One reason is that I already mentioned that the hormone cocktail makes the dog feel euphoric. But on the other hand, what happens is it lowers pain perception. And this makes total sense when we think about a dog that has to face a stag or a wild boar. And we know from gun dogs that they get heavily wounded. They have their stomachs ripped open, and still they want to finish the job, because in that moment, they do not feel the pain. And now tell me that the tap on the shoulder is enough to interrupt this behavior. It isn't. There has to be a lot of pain to interrupt it. And then when the pain is stronger than the actual sensation that the dog has from within, then what kicks in is fear. And fear hinders exploration behavior. We know that from other circumstances as well. When you have a fearful dog, the dog will not go into sniffing. The dog will not feel free to explore the environment. So we know that fear can inhibit exploration behavior, and predation is nothing else but exploration behavior. We explore the environment. So we need to inflict massive pain to create massive fear in order to inhibit this exploration behavior that we're dealing with. And once you understand that, you will never fall again for those tales that are told about e-collars and how they work, because they don't.
Yeah. And the thing is, even the timing of those things have to be so, precise as well. If someone is going to use something like that, it's just the fallout from using those things incorrectly as well is just massive. So
yes, exactly.
So yeah. Okay, so when a client comes to you then and tells you that their dog chases wildlife and that kind of thing, what generally would you start them off with doing? Do you have like a few foundation things that the dog needs to kind of have? Can you kind of describe to us what you
Yeah, the beginning is really boring because what I do is I send people away and I have them get an appointment with a veterinarian to get their dog vet checked. For some dogs, it's quite obvious that they are, they have a high prey drive, but others, I sometimes think there is something else going on, because when we have dogs that are in constant pain, chronic pain, for example, or a lot of background stress going on at home, maybe there is a new dog in the family, or a new baby, or the dog is can't be alone, has separation anxiety. What happens when they come outside and they suddenly have their free time is they go into predatory behavior a lot, because this is like a hobby that they indulge in. It's like a little bit like you come home from a stressful day in the office and then you have to hit the gym or go for a run to get it out of your system. And when I have dogs with massive prey drive, and I don't really know where this is coming from, I always send them to the vet. And I also check the circumstances, background stress and stuff, like what is going on at home. Does the dog get enough sleep, to rule this out? Because when you have this underlying problem, then you can train forever and nothing will happen. Yeah. So this is the first thing that needs to be done. And then we start with management and prevention, which means we basically teach the dog to stay in touch with their owner. Stay in touch, stay on a path, look back. It's quite boring, actually. It's not a very sexy training, but it is the biggest part of it all, and it lays the foundation for all the success that the dog learns to eat outside, to take treats outside. If the dogs are super aroused, we need them to eat in order to calm down. And these are the first steps that we take. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I was going to ask you actually because about food and stuff, because obviously I come from the agility world as well, where arousal level and stuff is also very high, and people almost see it as a bit of a triumph sometimes when their dogs don't take food out in the competition, you know, in that kind of environment and stuff. And so if you have got a client that says to you, my dog isn't food motivated at all, which again we see with behavior clients as what kind of things do you suggest to them to get them to start eating outside?
Yeah. So first of all, in predation, we use food, but we also use reinforcers from the environment. So if your dog is not food motivated, cannot take food at all, it's not a reason not to start. So we start anyway with the training, but those clients have it harder because they have to find environmental things that the dog finds interesting that they can use as a reinforcer. So we also try to get the dog to eat. And this also has the effect, or the very important effect, that, as I said before, eating is calming the dog down. When the dog licks and chews, it's like a pacifier. The dog calms down gradually and arousal levels go down. And then we need those arousal levels to come down in order for your dog to be able to listen to you. Because if you have a dog that cannot take food, cannot look back at you once, how are they supposed to come back when you call them? So it doesn't happen. So this is very, very basic stuff. You need to get your dog to eat outside. And one tip that you can try straight away is let your dog lick instead of chew, because licking is still possible for a lot of dogs when chewing treats is not possible anymore. So what I do is I take some baby food, puree, or tuna cream, or cheese, or spray cheese, or something like that outside, and then I coax my dog into eating. So you really need to convince them in the beginning. And once they started licking, you let them lick for at least 30 seconds. And then you see a difference in their eyes. You see the eyes getting really soft. And then, only then, after at least 30 seconds, you can try to sneak in a harder treat so that they come into chewing. And then maybe you can drop a treat so that they can lower their heads. And so you gradually build this behavior.
That's a really nice idea. I really like that idea. And I think as well, the fact that you're boarding the dog for that long as well, I think most people wouldn't do, because 30 seconds is actually quite a long time, isn't it? So
yes, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really good.
And then a question from my side. Have you noticed any differences between different breeds? Because, you know, there's often people that say, no, I have this breed, it's never going to work. And do you perhaps have sort of different approaches with different breeds that you maybe do? Or how would you answer someone asking that question?
Yeah, that's a good question. And of course, there are massive differences in the breeds. And you need a certain or a different approach for different breeds. That is absolutely, necessary. There is not one dog type that I could think of that, for who this training doesn't work, because you have to have a look at the predatory motor pattern that we talked about in the beginning. And then you have to choose the sequences, the parts that this dog was bred for or made for. And even if you have a livestock guardian dog who doesn't chase at all because they were never selected for impulsivity, they were never selected for running after something, they also do predation because they have massive orientation behavior. So their thing is to sit in your yard and watch over the whole area. And this is the very first step of predation. It's orientation behavior, scanning the environment. So we start working with that.
And that leads us on quite nicely to like the stalking game that you do. So obviously there are some parts of the predatory sequence that are safe, and then from the chase onwards, it's kind of not so safe. So what kind of things do you do to like with the stalking game. Can you describe it and how it works and everything?
Yeah. Maybe we should talk a little bit before that about the components of predation substitute training, because otherwise it's a little bit complicated to explain it.
Yeah.
So I said in the beginning that we all start with something that is called management and prevention, or I call it management and prevention, which is basically teaching the dog to stay in contact with you, being approachable, so lowering arousal levels. And then there is this second part or second component of this more holistic training approach, which is what I call predation substitute tools. And here I don't mean physical tools. It's nothing that you put on your dog or something. It's more behaviors that you and your dog learn that you show when wildlife turns up. So in the situation when you have a deer or a rabbit coming your way, then you both know what to do. Instead of barking, lunging, screaming, and you holding on to the leash and crying and shouting, you know what to do and your dog knows what to do. And I think this is a real nice way to give you agency and your dog agency, because you don't feel that helpless anymore, and the dog does not feel that frustrated anymore. So it's a win-win-win situation. You win, your dog wins, the wild animal wins because they are unharmed. And this is the second part. And then the third component of this whole training program is that we give the dog outlets for predatory behavior. Because the dogs do not know that they live in a modern world where it is not appropriate to run after a cat and grab it and kill it and something like that. But the dog does still have those needs. So instead of completely suppressing those behaviors, we find substitution games for each one of the steps, for orientation, behavior, scanning, listening, searching, sniffing, for stalking, for creeping, if your dog shows this, for chasing, for grabbing, for ripping apart, for eating. So this is a very important component, because this gives the dog an outlet for their needs that they have. And here is what the stalking game comes in, or where it comes in, because most of the dogs that, I think all of the dogs almost, they enjoy watching things. And watching is safer than chasing, because you already mentioned, Chantal, that there are safe parts of the predatory sequence that the dog can show that nothing happens. And this might include all the orientation stuff. It includes the stalk, and for some dogs even creep. But then after that, the chase and the grab and the kill and ripping apart and eating is not safe anymore. So we cannot allow it to the dogs. And then we find these substitution games, and stalking is safe because the dog is stationary. He watches the wild animal, but he doesn't move the feet, so he doesn't run. And we can use it as a substitution for chasing, because all those components feel good for the dog. There is already this dopamine rush, even when the dog just stands and watches. And so we can totally use it as a functional reinforcer. The dog can still hunt, but they can only hunt with their eyes, not with their feet, if that makes sense. Yeah. And the stalking game teaches the basics of this behavior that we can then transfer into the real world when we come across a deer or a rabbit, that the dog, instead of running over and chasing, stands and watches the other animal. And it all starts with a game where the dog learns to follow a moving object with their eyes instead of with their feet. It trains impulse control, and it gives a nice outlet, and it's just a nice game to play with your dog. So it's also something that you do together, and everybody has fun, and it's good for your relationship as well.
It sounds like control for sure.
And Simone has a freebie for everybody, which will be in the show notes. So you can just click on the link. There'll be a hyperlink. You can just click on that for the download from her. So I have a question from a listener, actually. She submitted a question in advance when she knew that we were going to have you on. She's also a huge fan. So her question is, is there any time where you would perhaps focus on teaching rather like a recall and only focusing on that, where like the training would actually sort of enhance the dog's predation? You know, like so is there anywhere where you focus rather on a recall, simply just that?
Yeah, it is definitely. It's a good question, because our dogs are not super dogs or superhumans or better supernatural beings. So they have their inner urges and their impulse control is limited. So I just explained how we use the stalk, so the standing, watching another animal. But this mainly applies, or well, it's not the right word I'm looking for. This mainly is for animals that are a little bit further away and not so swift. If you have a squirrel that turns up 2 meters in front of you and runs across the street, your dog will not have the ability to calmly stand and watch. They will go into the chase straight away. So this is a very impulsive reaction. And there I would never ask my dog, okay, now we stand, now we watch, because I know they can't deliver in the situation. And this is where I go for recall. So this is a very common thing, actually, that is confusing for a lot of people. And I get this question a lot. So when something comes up swiftly, quickly, directly in front of you, you have no chance. You need to call your dog out of the situation. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah. And going on to, so I've read all your books. I love your books. And so on your recall book, you talk about doing like a double recall cue.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so the double recall is a method that has been developed here in Germany by a trainer, or no, she's not a trainer, actually, she's a behaviorist, Dr. Ute Plaschke-Berthold, a very German name, a complicated name. And she came up with the idea, which is brilliant if you think about it, that recall, what we call recall, is actually two different behaviors. And the first one is that the dog turns away from something interesting in the environment that they actually want to check out, but they have to turn physically away from it. And this is the hardest part. And then you have the second behavior, and the second behavior is coming all the way back to you, which is hard too. But once you have managed that your dog can disengage from this interesting thing in the environment, coming back is, it's just an add-on. And this is why she split the recall into two different sections and two different training sections that then she puts together like a puzzle. And in the first part, you basically train your dog to turn away from things that they find interesting. And once you've mastered that, the rest, I wouldn't say it comes by itself. You still have to practice, but it's much easier. And this is something that a lot of people don't understand, that their dog is really performing two different behaviors after each other. So we have a behavior chain, and behavior chains, it's not that easy to train as just one single motion or thing that we want to do our dogs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think as well, most people forget that our pet dogs were all originally bred to work, and so they love being outside. And I think so many people poison their recalls as well from quite a young age as well. So as soon as, adolescence kind of hits, I find a lot of clients suddenly start getting very frustrated with their dogs, and they inadvertently kind of poison their recall cue.
Yeah, and this is a big problem in anti-predation training, to be honest, because your recall might still be okay when you're in the house or when nothing is around, and on your walk, you just want your dog to come closer. But when we come to recall from wildlife, this is the hardest part of recall. So this is the world championship of recall training. And there, your training progress has to be really pure. And if you lay the foundations and you do a lot of mistakes here, you accidentally poison the recall and you don't have it in this pure way built up to this behavior, then it will never work. So with a lot of clients, I look at their recall and then we start from scratch. We say, okay, we can't mend this recall to this up to this level. So we introduce a new recall that is not poisoned, that we carefully scaffold, and yeah, we start from scratch again to make it pure. Because when your dog has to turn away and come all the way back from running wildlife, the emotion needs to be pure. And when you have, for example, always bent forward and send these mixed messages to your dog, like our body language is telling the dog stay away, but the voice says come here, or the voice says stay away, but we say, our words say come here, then the emotion is not pure. It's always mixed and ambiguous. So it will not work in this situation. It might work in everyday situations, but not in this case.
Yeah.
And it's actually so interesting. I did I think your recall short course with Grisha Stewart that you did like maybe years ago, a while ago.
Yeah.
So it's something that we've also implemented with our clients, like the double recall. And I think the favorite thing for them is coming up with creative new recall words. I remember I had a client, the Labby, and the Labby was a little bit chunky, you know, as Labbies can be. And her new recall cue was hippo, you know, the orientation. I just thought it was so cute. So I have two questions actually. So my first question is on recall and using rewards. So how do you determine what to use as a reward? I think everyone always uses food, but you can do more than that. And I think for most dogs, you should do more than that. And then my second question, going back to predation substitute training, is how long on average does it take for dogs to sort of master it?
Yeah, so for recall, you were asking about rewards, right? Yeah, the reinforcers. Good. So from the perspective of training predatory behavior force-free, we need to reconsider our rewards. This is something that I have checklists for my clients. I send them home and I let them write down several things, because handing over a cookie does not work. It's not what we call functional, because functional means the reinforcer, the reward that you deliver, mimics what your dog actually wanted to do before that. So if you think about predation, my dog wants to chase. Very simple. So your reinforcer needs to mimic this act. So instead of letting them chase a squirrel, they can chase a tree together with you, or a toy together with you. But it's not so much the component of what they use or what you use as a reinforcer. It's more what you do with it, the treat delivery. And besides from treat delivery, we also think about reinforcers from the environment that we can use, that are safe to use. For example, if your dog wants to go after a squirrel or a crow, and you know, okay, the squirrel is already up the tree, the squirrel is safe, or the crow is about to fly off, it doesn't look like it's a very old crow, then you can ask for a recall. And when your dog is there with you, you send them straight away to have it. So you actually give them what they want to have. And this is something very, very powerful, reinforces from the environment, so that you give your dog access to what they originally want. So it's not that you are the killjoy on the other end of the leash, but you are turning into a hunting partner and you give them what they want. Yeah, but just in a safe way.
Yeah, I think people are really scared of that, aren't they? They think that if you allow the dog to do it, then they're just going to continue doing it
more and more. Yeah.
But actually, if you do put it on a cue and you do put it under stimulus control, then I find it makes the dogs much more engaged with you.
Yes, definitely. And of course, you have to quickly evaluate and check your environment. Is it really safe to release my dog here? Because I had this really once with my young dog, Isla. She came back from a dove. The dove was sitting in a field, and I sent her back to flush the dove. And what she did, she kept running. She kept running after this dove. The dove was in the sky already. And she simply ran off, and even to a point where I lost sight of her because the field was going downhill. And I knew that somewhere behind this field, there was a street, but I didn't really recall how far it was. So it was really, yeah, I was really afraid until I had her back. So I won't do this anymore in this particular place. Okay, now she's grown, she doesn't do that anymore. But yeah, you have to check your environment first, and you have to evaluate, is it now safe to do this or not? And I even had a story with my older dog, Nanook. I sent him back to a squirrel. So the squirrel was in a park or something. And I called him back. He came back. The squirrel was up the tree. And I released him. And he jumped towards the tree. And the squirrel fell off the tree. So it didn't really fall off. It grabbed the branch, and but it was like, oh my God, it's falling off. So yeah, it is dangerous. You have to really think about, is it worth doing it? And if it's not, then better don't do it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then how long would you say it kind of roughly takes? Because this is something that I get clients ask me all of the time about dogs with predatory drive. Like, how long do these kind of games take? Yeah, so and I know it's really difficult to say because it's, on like how long is it?
Yeah, no, it's not that difficult to say, to be honest. It works quite quickly, but it also takes a lot of time, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So if you have a dog with a high prey drive, highly predatory motivation, for example, a hound or a setter or a cocker, so really a dog that was bred for hunting, it takes all your dog's life. So your training is never finished. So you always have to refresh. You always have to, to have you will never be able to just walk on your phone and answer your WhatsApp messages and your dog is somewhere in the bushes. So it's like you always have to communicate on your walks. It's getting easier, of course, but there will always be days that are good and that are bad, or worse or better. And your training is never really finished. But on the other hand, it becomes your second nature, because when you are in this training, it's not an artificial training that you do in a dog club or something, or in a training center. It's something that you take outside and you integrate it into your walks and into your everyday life. So you will be training, but you will not even really notice, because this is just the way that you handle your dog now. And most people come to me for 4 sessions. And after these 4 sessions, I release them into the wild world. And then sometimes they come back after half a year for another 1 or 2 sessions to do some improvements or some alterations. But in 4 sessions, we can lay very solid foundations that they can work with on their own.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's quite quickly, because you don't work against the dog. You make progress pretty fast. Once you have learned how to do it and your dog knows how to do it, it's quite fluent, because it works with the dog. So yeah, 4 sessions are normally what it takes to get a solid foundation.
And then, are there any equipment that you would say is a must for the dog that loves hunting? So, a solid harness, maybe a tracker, maybe. What is it that you use or that you advise to clients?
Yeah, so I always have my dogs on harnesses. If you use a long line, I think a harness is a must, because using a long line on a collar might end up badly for your dog, because of the impact that they might run into the long line. So if you use a long line, you must use a harness, I would say that. Otherwise, I have dogs on collars too, because if the dog can walk off leash and he doesn't like a harness, they can be on a collar too. I don't mind. A tracker, I think, is always quite good. So now we have the opportunities to have trackers, and I would say it is a good thing to have, that you know where to pick up your dog.
Yeah.
Even though this shouldn't happen, but it's a safety measure.
Yeah.
But otherwise, treats that your dog loves, and that is it. So one toy, maybe 2 toys. I don't take a lot of toys with me when I'm outside, and this is it. So you don't need super equipment or something. Yeah.
And with
Yeah.
the toys, what kind of games do you play with the toys? Do you?
Yeah. I have it here on my desk. I have it always here on my desk. So what I love in terms of toys are these furry things.
Oh, the lotus balls. Yeah, we use those for agility.
And I don't know if you have them in South Africa.
Oh,
It's
no, not seen those.
prey dummy.
Oh,
Okay.
And they have this fur on the outside, and they are stuffable with treats.
Oh,
Oh, there are some
yes.
old treats in it, some
Yeah.
old and dry treats. And the same with the lotus ball with the fur outside. I think they are brilliant because they tap into this, yeah, that the dog really wants to grab it and even dissect it. So I have a lot of dogs that I
Yes,
need to
yes.
stop because
Yeah.
they're quite expensive. I don't want them to rip
Yeah,
apart
yeah.
this toy. What is really brilliant here is a tip for dog owners who struggle with a dog that is not able to take treats outside, but they are able to play. So we can sneak in the food while the dog plays. So we play first, and then eventually we open it up and we have something to lick in here.
Yeah.
Or on the other hand, if we have a dog that loves to eat but doesn't like to play, we can bring them to play via the food in there.
Yeah.
So I really love them. Yeah.
Yeah. I use them a lot for agility actually as well. And I remember with one of my Shelties many years ago, I had a lotus ball, but it was on the end of like a plaited fleece as well. So once she realized it had food in, I would then get her chasing it and stuff. And so then she'd be pouncing on it and she loved it. Like it was really exciting. And I have a quick question. So you get gun dog training scents like Eau de Pheasant and Eau de Rabbit.
Yes.
Would you ever use something like that to make the toy kind of more smelly and enticing for the dog? Or have you found you've never kind of really needed to?
I have never used it, to be honest. I know from colleagues who use it, but I have never. Oh, it's mixed. The feedback is quite mixed. So I have a trainer colleague. She is also a hunter and a passionate hunter, and she trains hunting dogs for free. And she also does this anti-predation training for family dogs. And she says it smells totally different from a real animal. So, and she really knows how animals smell.
Yeah.
And she says the reactions from the dogs are very different. So some like it, others don't.
Yeah.
But if it works, give it a try. You can put it onto the fur and just have a look if your dog finds it even more interesting, or if it's then you don't need to waste your money on it.
No, that makes
But whatever works, give it a try.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Cool. Thank you so much. That's been so interesting. We've loved chatting to you. If people want to find out more about you, where can they find you?
So I of course have a website, and I'm also on social media, mainly on Instagram, but also on Facebook and a little bit on TikTok. If you type in Predation Substitute Training, I think you might find the accounts. And I always love to see people giving this a try. So if you're out with your dog and you take a photo of your dog playing a game or stalking an animal or something like this, you're always welcome to tag me and to catch up and see this in real life. And of course, I have a website, predationsubstitutetraining.com. And on this website, there are all my courses and also the freebie. The freebie is called Giveaway on this website. So a lot of people don't find it. I need to rename it eventually. And the courses that I have too. So I have a very comprehensive self-learning course, which is called Call of the Chase. And this covers all the aspects that we just talked about: management and prevention, the tools, if you have a dog that rather loves to watch animals, if you have a dog that sniffs a lot or tracks a lot, then we have games for each section of the predatory motor pattern. And of course, a little bit about recall. It's not a recall course, but it's also covered because at one point you will need to interrupt your dog from chasing or whatever. And so you're very welcome to check out my website and have a look at that.
Cool, cool. I will actually, I need to tag you in a video because a couple of weeks ago I took a video of my young border collie. She was stalking a bird and then she was stalking it for a bit and then she turned away and looked at me and I was like, yay.
Yes.
So, and I actually thought of you and I was like, yes. So yeah, that was really cool. So yeah.
How did it feel for you? How did this feel for you when your dog did this?
Oh, it's amazing. No, I loved it.
Yeah.
I've kind of done it from like a young age. Like I did food games and I would toss food and around birds and things, you know, because she finds the environment. She would love to live on a farm and just be around sheep and just, you know, she loves the environment. Like she's a typical kind of working line collie. So yeah,
But,
and just and I think now she's kind of she's 18 months now, so she's starting to come out of adolescence. I've noticed, like, she's all of a sudden just our relationship is just getting so strong now.
But what I even after all those years, when my dog does something like this, I have to say that it really gives me this oxytocin boost.
Yeah.
Feel good hormone that is released when we cuddle and something like this. And when the dog watches something really interesting and they turn around and they look at you with this, oh mom, did you see that? This is so amazing, and it really gives you something back.
Definitely. And I think it's all about having that relationship with your dog as well, because I remember, I think we were talking to Kamal Fernandez, weren't we, the other week, and we were talking things, and I was saying when she was about 5 months, we were out on my training ground and this hare just appeared out of nowhere right in front of her, and that was it. She was gone. Like, and I was just thinking, oh my God, I'm never gonna get her back. And I'm trying to like run off to run and panic. And then I've got my other Shelties bouncing around me, barking, and I was like having a meltdown. And then literally a few months later, it was a few months ago, same thing happened. A hare just appeared about 3 meters in front of her, and I called her and she immediately just came straight back to me. And so it is just all about that relationship and just working with your dog.
So special.
Exactly.
It's just the best feeling ever. Even now I'm getting
special. Yeah.
It's the best feeling.
So, and especially in predation, we humans feel so helpless and so lost and so frustrated, and we try to do everything right with our dogs, and then they still chase off, and
I know.
It can be so frustrating. And when you can turn this around into this feeling of connection and understanding, and it is so much better.
And you always think the worst as well when they go out of your sight. And I just think, oh my God, that's it. They're going to get run over. They're dead. They're like,
panic.
Please panic.
That's true.
So, it is well worth doing the training.
Have either of you seen the video about Fenton running after the deer?
Yes, that was
the Fenton video.
That is hilarious, that video. I must say, the guy's reaction is like, but
it's funny.
I always feel so sorry, and I know you shouldn't do that because it's an offense, but every time I see the video, it comes up on my phone. I have to watch it. I have to watch it.
Oh, it is very funny.
Okay, but the last guest we had on, I asked if there were 3 things that you would recommend that would make your dog happy. So what are 3 things that the average person can do to make sure that their dog is happy?
Wow, this is a good question. I think one thing that you can do is you can sit down and research your dog. What were they bred to do? Were they bred to work with humans or not? Were they bred to work at a distance from a human or close by? And then have a look at the predatory motor pattern and think which parts are required to do this, to show this behavior that was bred into our dogs for generations. And this is what you can expect. So if you have a setter and you expect them to be by your heel all the time, you will not be happy. Your setter will not be happy. Or if you have a cocker that is supposed, or a spaniel, to never sniff, you will not be happy and your dog will not be happy. So this is definitely one thing that you can teach your or that you can do for your dog before you even get your dog, or before you even start training, or even after all those years, to get a better understanding of your dog. And the next thing is that you teach your dog to eat outside. because then you have the whole world of dog training open for you. So be persistent, try different textures, try different food types, think out of the box, go into the supermarket, walk along the aisle and grab everything that comes into your mind, maybe tuna or a sandwich or fish and chips. It doesn't matter. Even if you have a dog that loves to eat chips, and for a certain amount of time you can do this, and you take the chips out and give them as a reinforcer for super duper behavior. So this is the second thing that I would recommend. And the third thing, I think I will leave it with these two.
Those are good enough. Those are good enough.
Definitely. Yeah, they're both very important. So yeah, and I think it's things that people don't do as well. So yeah, really helpful. Cool. Oh, well, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate your time, and we've loved chatting with you.
Oh, thank you very much. It was lovely. It was really wonderful. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, thank you.